I'm Shalini Bhutani, welcoming you all to this 90-minute webinar, which is focused on analyzing the decisions that were taken at the World Trade Organization's 12th Ministerial Conference, particularly the decisions related to food and agriculture and their implications for India. As you know, the World Trade Organization came into being on 1st of January 1995, and in its 27 years, there have been 12 ministerial conferences. The Ministerial Conference, or the MC, is the topmost decision-making body of the WTO. The MC has the power under the rules of the WTO to take decisions on all matters related to the multilateral trade agreements that form the GATT-WTO architecture. The MC usually meets every 2 years, and the MC11, or the 11th Ministerial Conference, was held in Buenos Aires, Argentina in December 2017. Thereafter, the MC12 was supposed to be held in the Kazakhstan capital in June 2020, which was postponed due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the time ensuing, on 1st of March 2021, the World Trade Organization also got a new Director General, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And there was a decision taken in the General Council in Geneva that the MC12 will be held in November, December, which was again postponed due to the Omicron variant. So the last MC12, which we're talking about, was finally held in Geneva from 12 to 15 of June 2022, which was in fact extended by a day because there was no agreements till the very last minute. And we are gathered here today to make sense of this Geneva package and what it means for Indian food and agriculture. But it must be said that you can't expect good outcomes from not so good organizations. So our speakers will take us through not only the contents of the outcomes, but the process of how these decisions were actually reached. Rich and powerful countries created new demands for, quote unquote, the WTO reform itself. And their intention has been to legitimize non-consensus and non-multilateral methods of concluding agreements in the WTO, which actually erodes the possibility of developing countries like India to actually resist the WTO expansion into other areas, while the Doha Development Round and the agenda there is still limping along. And there has been a whole dynamic of secretive green room practice, which has been common leading up to and during this ministerial conference, which then explains the outcomes that do not reflect the interests of a majority of the WTO members. And typically, the developed countries, particularly UK, Switzerland, EU, and UK, have engaged in a blame game, trying to pin the blame on certain developing countries like India for resisting pressure tactics and standing up to their interests. But the most disappointing outcome of MC12, I think, has been the failure of WTO members to actually agree on the removal of obstacles created by the WTO TRIPS agreement to help resolve the pandemic by adopting comprehensive waiver of intellectual property restrictions on vaccines, treatments, and tests related to COVID-19. So while that has been the headline from the MC12, I think the next major disappointment has been relating to the demand in the context of the global pandemic, the demand by developing countries to be able to invest more in their own production and domestic production to promote food security, for which they do need flexibility from restrictive WTO rules that limit their ability to subsidize food production for the poor. Now, among the other things, the Geneva package of the MC12 comprises a ministerial declaration on the emergency response to food insecurity, a ministerial decision on World Food Programme food purchases and exemptions from export prohibitions or restrictions to the WFP food purchases, and an agreement on fishery subsidies, which we will deal with in another forthcoming webinar. But to locate the decisions of the MC12 on food and agriculture in the national context, I'm just going to flag some of the key things that have happened between 2017 and 2022 within India, which also relate to the discussions our speakers are going to initiate. One is that in 2018, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, not the Ministry of Agriculture, announced an agriculture export policy. So there is an increased impetus to export of agricultural products from India. And that ambition from the government of India's programs and policies. Thereafter, in 2020, we were hit, as other countries were, with the pandemic, and that created additional food and nutritional needs. And in the midst of the outbreak, the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana scheme was announced to support food vulnerable sections of society. And it is still ongoing under extension. Through this program, the center distributes 5 kilograms of food grains per person per month, free of cost, to about 80 crore beneficiaries covered under the Domestic National Food Security Act. This is in addition to what the center already provides under this act, which is 5 kgs wheat and rice per month per person at a highly subsidized rate. The question is, how do these schemes and programs get impacted by decisions at the World Trade Organization? And that's the debate on food security that some of our speakers will bring up. Even though it is reported that an internal note of the Finance Ministry's Department of Economic Affairs conveys that the government is planning to discontinue this scheme after September. And this is also linked to the increasing in inflation, food inflation, as well as the rising fertilizer subsidies bill that the government has to now provide for. So apart from those developments in 2021, 3 new farm laws were proposed, and the country saw the most massive protests, pan-India protests by farmers and allies, also asking for a legally guaranteed minimum support price for their crops. How the WTO comes head on in the way of that demand is also something that will be touched upon today. But in the meantime, apart from these domestic developments, in December 2021, India also felt the heat of a panel decision by the dispute settlement body of the WTO, which ruled against India's sugar and sugarcane subsidies. In January this year, India appealed against that ruling, but there's that long-standing issue, not only about the appellate body and the US-led spokes in the wheel on actually reactivating that body, but also on India's ambitions for agricultural export in the light of such WTO restrictions. In the meantime, the world witnessed in February 2022 Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the effect it has on the global food supply chains and how that faced disruptions. In the light of which, again, government of India seemed keen to benefit from that and to export grain from India. But on 13th May of this year, government of India also announced a wheat export ban. So what I'm trying to get to is that a country's trade policy cannot be examined in isolation of its overall economic policy.